This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream, the best place to find and watch documentaries about science, history, technology, nature, travel, and so much more. Click the link below to check it out for yourself or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Back when XDefiant was first revealed, it was called Tom Clancy's XDefiant, and nobody liked that. The Tom Clancy label used to mean something serious, something tactical, but its luster has slowly been ground down as Ubisoft continued to slap the label on basically anything with a gun. Even with this decline in brand relevance, Tom Clancy's XDefiant felt like a bridge too far, with its neon-infused, graffiti-colored, edgy boy trailer showcasing a game pulling in different factions from across Tom Clancy games, each of them wielding special abilities and ultimates that, while grounded in technology, were a hell of a lot more sci-fi than they were Tom Clancy. So a lot of downvotes, a lot of dunks on Twitter and Reddit. Ubisoft got the message. They actually dropped Tom Clancy from the title, and they smartened up the branding. See how it used to have the hot yellow and the scuffed XD? They replaced that with something a lot more serious-faced, or at least as serious as it can be for a title that can be shorthanded to XD. Now, this is a change to just the branding, since if you compare the gameplay of the original debut trailer versus what's playable now in the closed beta, the gameplay looks the same. It's not like they overhauled the entire game in response to this initial feedback, but despite the fact that this is a branding change, I think it speaks to something more. I think it speaks to an earnest desire on the part of this development team to create a game that is responding to what their target market actually wants. And to be clear, their target market is basically Call of Duty players. For example, many Call of Duty players hate skill-based matchmaking. XDefiant does not have skill-based matchmaking. Many Call of Duty players are frustrated with the no red dots on the minimap thing in Modern Warfare 2. XDefiant has red dots on the minimap when someone fires an unsuppressed gun. Modern Warfare 2 doesn't have map voting. XDefiant does, etc, etc. That's not to say that XDefiant is trying to be a fixed version of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, because it's not. It's trying to be its own thing, merging the gunplay and movement of classic Call of Duty games with the ability-driven operators of Call of Duty Black Ops 4, with the objective-style gameplay of something like Overwatch, all wrapped up in a setting drawn from across Ubisoft's portfolio of games. But the devil is in the details, and as you poke and prod at XDefiant, you find that much of it exists in response to many of the complaints about the more recent COD games, and a desire to get back to baseline when it comes to stuff like gunplay, movement, map awareness, and game flow. For what it's worth, it seems to be working. The recent closed beta was the first time the game could be streamed and content published on different platforms. There was a lot of very positive sentiment from a broad range of people. Many hardcore COD players and content creators were surprised by how much they enjoyed it. I absolutely found myself in the same boat. I put about 15 hours into it over the last week. I was really cynical about this one going in, to be honest. I didn't get good vibes from that initial marketing push, but as I played more and more of it this past week, I found a game that was really well made, and that feels like it has a lot of potential if it's properly supported. And that's the kicker, right? The shadow of Hyperscape looms large over this one. Hyperscape was actually a really solid foundation for an arena shooter style battle royale. It had tons of fantastic ideas, most of them underbaked, but yeah, a lot of promise. Sadly, Ubisoft just totally abandoned that one almost right out of the gate, and it met its predictable end last year, being taken offline. Will XDefiant suffer the same fate? Who knows? But I will say that I think XDefiant is starting out at a much better spot than Hyperscape was. This already feels more polished, more fleshed out, has more content on day one, and its case for success is much clearer, given that it's reaching out to an existing audience rather than trying to create a whole new one. There are plenty of reasons to still be skeptical about this, but I think this is actually one of the more promising Ubisoft releases we've seen in a hot minute. It's not going to knock over COD or anything, this is not a COD killer, but XDefiant actually has a shot of being a success in its own right, so long as Ubisoft have the stomach to stick with it in the long term. So what is XDefiant? Well, it's a free-to-play competitive first-person shooter. It's fairly analogous to Call of Duty in many aspects, but to be honest, I don't really like playing Call of Duty. I've never enjoyed the time to kill, and its most populated game modes are typically just team deathmatch, whereas I prefer something objective-based. So all of this is by way of saying, if you're not a Call of Duty fan, I wouldn't immediately dismiss this one out of hand, because the abilities of the operators and the more objective-focused game modes might be for you, they certainly were for me. There are a number of those objective-focused game modes available. The first one, and the one I enjoyed the most, was Escort. It's essentially payload, where you stand near a little robot thing to make it move. But I enjoyed this one the most because this is where the operator kits really shine, and where I think gameplay is its most fluid and fast-moving, whereas some of the other modes started to get a little campy. Those other modes are all about holding 1 or 2 points on the map. Zone control sees one team attacking and another defending, and the attackers need to capture 2 points on the map, after which 2 more points open up, so on and so forth. Domination is your classic 3-point capture, both teams running around trying to control as many points as possible during the match, and Occupy is 1 point on the map, both teams vying for control, and the point moves around intermittently to keep things fresh. So obviously, not a lot of innovation in these game modes, but they are tried and proven game modes. There is a reason games keep coming back to them. They get the job done. In addition to all of this, there is a ranked mode, but that isn't available during the beta. No idea how that will look at launch. Interesting to note, there is no team deathmatch or free-for-all game modes included. I think that's a decision related to the operator kits, which often provide team utility when pushing on or defending an objective. If you just have a game mode where everyone is running around lone wolf killing each other, that would work because the gunplay and map design is strong enough to hold, but a large number of those operator kits would feel pretty redundant, and ultimately you'd see people ignoring half the roster. That's why I think the Escort mode is the best. That's the one where you need to stand near a payload to make it move, while the other team needs to dig in and stop you from doing that. As the payload makes progress, it reaches checkpoints that reset the spawn points for each team in the game. This mode makes full use of every operator kit and weapon type. If the defending team are digging in with snipers at the back, you may want to select one of the echelon classes, equip the stealth suit and a shotgun, slip in silently behind enemy lines, and point blank their snipers. If you want to hard push that objective, the Ghosts have deployable shields, allowing you to push the objective in a way that all but negates the threat of snipers, forcing the defending team to move up with short-range weapons and explosives. When I first started playing this, each round was a bit of a steamroll. I think people were playing it like a round of team deathmatch, just chasing kills and ignoring the more strategic elements of operator kits, not working together as a team, etc. But as the days wore on, I could definitely see the meta shifting as people began to utilize new weapons, classes, and strategies to push harder on those objectives, resulting in some really close, really tense matches. By the end, I was regularly seeing these super tight finishes where games were pushed into overtime and everyone was playing the objective so hard, and it was great, to be honest with you. The fact that those moments could occur at all speaks not only to the strength of these game modes, but also the overall map, class, and weapon balance. It's not perfect. The healer class, for example, is pretty overpowered in this beta, but it's overall pretty strong. I played the Exoprimal beta a little while ago, and that has a PvP component, believe it or not. In that beta, there was tons of unbalanced class and map design stuff that really broke that game and made me skeptical that Capcom knew what they were doing. Here, I think Ubisoft know what they're doing, and they've really dialed in the most essential aspects of this correctly, which is a pretty big achievement considering that this game isn't even out yet.
Revenge kill, a professional courtesy.
Speaking of maps, there's a lot of them. 14 at launch. Modern Warfare 2 launched with 17 maps, but that's a full price $70 release. This is a free-to-play game. These maps are also really well made. They're your classic 3-lane highways, and the developers haven't been shy about that, but they're full of plenty of geometry, allowing you to peek, take high ground, drop to lower levels, and really make use of the layout in skirmishes. They're very dense maps. There's always a lot going on in each space, and it's rare to find instances where one team has an advantage over the other purely because of map layout, or where snipers are able to cover too much area, or where shotgun rushing is the only viable strategy, etc. Ubisoft have said that they spent a lot of time internally and externally testing this game, and I think the strength of this map design is one of the examples of that testing having paid off. The maps also have plenty of personality, particularly if you've played previous Ubisoft games. The premise for XDefiant is that its maps, like its character roster, are pulled from different Ubisoft games, namely Splinter Cell, Far Cry, Watch Dogs, The Division, and Ghost Recon. So as a Division fan, I love it when the Times Square map pops up. It's a wholly original map, purpose-built for XDefiant, but it's full of visual elements that are a nod to the game that began my YouTube career. There's a map set in Splinter Cell's Echelon HQ. Peblito is inspired by Far Cry 6, Noodleplex is inspired by Watch Dogs, etc. It's a cool conceit, but it's also one that Ubisoft are not limited by, since there are plenty of maps that are just doing their own thing, not directly connected to any existing Ubisoft property. The maps also look really nice. Each one of them has a distinctive visual style that sets it apart from other maps. High-rises, a converted stadium, a theme park, a Crash 747. The visual hooks and landmarks are really well conceived and give each map a lot of identity. The game also runs really well. If you look at feedback across social media, almost no one is complaining about poor FPS or optimization issues. The visual style isn't pushing any graphical boundaries, but the upside to that is that Ubisoft have more headroom to reach for higher frame rates and stability. Probably a good time to talk about that PC options menu then, which is excellent. That's actually one thing that Ubisoft managed to get right most of the time, and it's no different here. There's adjustable FOV, you can toggle things like sprint behavior, crouch behavior, and auto reload. I made a ton of tweaks in this menu alone to get the game feeling just right for how I play shooters, and it feels like there's nothing missing from this suite of options, which is great. For keyboard and mouse, you can tweak sensitivity and remap every key, and on controller, there's a lot of specificity with relation to things like dead zones, aim assist, aim responsiveness curves, and more. Again, these things speak to the desire to connect with that COD community, since these sorts of settings are really important to anyone who plays competitive shooters with a controller. On the video and graphics tab, you can set refresh rate, frame rate caps, you can enable NVIDIA Reflex, which significantly reduces input latency. There's a DirectX 12 client right out the gate, as well as a huge number of graphical options allowing you to push more frames if you're running lower end hardware. Very few PC titles that ship in 2023 have a PC options menu this fleshed out. This is one of the good ones. This sort of flexibility, tweakability, and customization really matters in a game like this, and I think it just shows that Ubisoft are directing their time and effort towards what matters most. One area where I think there's some room for improvement is operators, or characters, or heroes, or whatever you want to call them. They're drawn from the 5 games I listed earlier, and each faction offers up 3 different characters. The characters are not actual named characters from those previous games, so it's not like you're playing as Sam Fisher or Aaron Keener or Vars or whatever. You're just playing as random Splinter Cell operative, random ghost, random Libertad guerrilla fighter, etc. It's a bummer because these characters don't seem to have any backstory or personality. They're just like mannequins in a shop window, which seems like such a waste. Like, I get that you don't want to make Joseph Seed a playable character for a lot of reasons, but the Far Cry games have a huge supporting cast, and it could have dropped in at least one of those characters in here. It's a problem that plagued Watch Dogs Legion, I think. There you could play as any character you saw anywhere in the world, which is a neat gameplay trick, but it also means that you don't have any distinctive characters you can build up and around, and as a result, Watch Dogs Legion felt very clever, but also more than a little soulless. XDefiant feels rather the same way, I think. Its maps do so much to transport you back to those familiar Ubisoft worlds, its characters absolutely do not. I think this approach also stands in contrast to what feels contemporary at this point. These free-to-play competitive experiences are often built on strong characters that people can become invested in. Their in-game storylines evolve with each season. People do fan art, they do cosplay, they do Rule 30... Wait, what? Point is, I think this rather faceless approach to characters leaves a lot on the table, and it would be nice if Ubi could flesh this side of the game out a little more post-launch. As for character kits, the way it works is that each faction has a passive trait, an ultimate, and 2 selectable abilities to choose from. So regardless of which ghost I choose, I'm always going to have a passive that gives me bonus health, I'm always going to have an AoE shield bubble ultimate thing that I can walk around with, and I'm going to have the choice of either a riot shield I can carry or a force field barrier I can deploy on the ground. In this way, ability choices are totally decoupled from characters, so characters are essentially skins. Overall, the current suite of abilities, passives, and ultimates are kind of derivative, but they do seek to establish some class identity, and they do open up some buildcraft opportunities. Obviously, if you're looking to hold a position, then the Ghost deployable cover is very helpful, plus the bonus health passive they have is nice for trades. If you're looking to go on a killing spree, the Cleaners will do bonus incendiary damage, but they do suffer a range penalty for all weapons. The Splinter Cell Phantoms don't appear on minimaps no matter what they do, making them ideal for cheeky infiltrations, while the Libertad healing deployables provide a lot of health very quickly, which can obviously be used to clutch both 1v1s and push objectives in a pinch. So it's a solid mix of offense, defense, strategy, stealth, support, some nice trade-offs, and it all adds a strategic element to the baseline arena shooter style gameplay. Speaking of that gameplay, yeah, it's very solid. I don't think we should be surprised by that though. I think we need to remember that Ubisoft have had decades of experience making shooters, from Rainbow Six Siege to Far Cry to The Division. Don't get me wrong, these games all have their problems, but in terms of raw gunplay, these are some of the best feeling shooters you can play, and you can absolutely feel the strength of Ubisoft's experience here in XDefiant. Every weapon feels great to use, weapon swapping is quick, aim down sight speed is snappy, recoil is meaningful without being out of control, and overall weapon feedback and sound design are on point. Aim assist is generous without taking the piss, and weapon balance feels good, though some categories like the assault rifle and sniper feel very strong in some game modes. Same goes for flashbangs on certain maps and in certain locations. Weapons can be customized in great detail with a very flexible modding system. As you rack up kills with each gun, you'll unlock new attachments for free, and these do all the things you expect them to. Interestingly, Ubisoft have added a fantastic mods menu that shows you exactly what every single mod does for your weapon when you apply it. Damage drop-off, movement speed and ADS speed impacts, reload times, time visible on the map, etc. Destiny's UI is like, this perk buffs your damage sometimes, maybe, shrug emoji. And I for one prefer an approach that's willing to provide all of the relevant info in-game without the need to access third-party websites. Time to kill is so critical to get right in any shooter, but particularly one like this. It's one of the things that sunk Hyperscape, as everyone kind of agreed it was a bit too long. It was a major point of feedback in the recent finals playtest. Again, everyone agreeing it was a bit too long. Then there's COD, where a bunch of people are like, it's too short, and most encounters come down to who shoots first. XDefiant has really nailed its time to kill right off the blocks. It definitely is not always who shoots first. You do have time to react, but at the same time, yeah, it's a quick time to kill. This is not Halo. It's a really nice sweet spot that they've struck, and again, if you look around at feedback, you're going to see a lot of people very happy with where Ubisoft have landed on this one. Not so for netcode, and I would say that if there's one really big issue I noted during my playtime, is that the netcode is pretty garbage. Netcode isn't server stability, by the way, it's how accurately the server is tracking and updating events in-game. Poor netcode will result in things like kill trading, shots not registering, being killed behind cover. Essentially, all the things we have to put up with in Destiny PvP every day. Ubisoft have a poor track record when it comes to strong netcode underpinning its online experiences. It's plagued every game they've put out pretty much. They've done a huge amount of work to improve it in the likes of Siege, but that took a long time, and audiences aren't going to hang around for Ubi to fix it here in XDefiant. I was getting killed around corners a lot, I was seeing ghost bullets a lot, and I was on an Oceanic server, 12 ping. So that's just not going to fly for an experience like this. It's definitely going to be the kind of thing that can and will tank this game with the hardcore community, so hopefully Ubisoft can make some quick improvements there. The decision to not have any skill-based matchmaking will likely be controversial, since that's something that not everyone agrees on. Some people think that casual quick play should only match you with people at the same skill level as yourself. Others feel like casual is for casual, and if you want a skill-checked experience, go play ranked. I agree with those people. I'm not a PvP sweat by any means, but I have seen what skill-based matchmaking has done to Destiny's PvP, and it has been shit. Many hardcore PvP fans have just moved away from the game entirely, since every single match is like an MLG grand final, with every person sweating their balls off and running the most boring meta loadouts and playstyles possible. You can't play with any friends who are more or less skilled than you because they exist in totally different skill brackets, and it's just an awful experience. It's bad, and I'm fully on board with any game that has connection-based casual lobbies and properly skill-ranked elo-based competitive modes. That makes sense logically, and I think Ubisoft are really smart to go down this path. Finally, a big shout out to visual clarity. When I do dabble in COD, one of the things I don't like about it is its lack of visual clarity. Some games in the series are better at this than others, but on the whole, I don't think Activision places much premium on being able to see your foe or them being able to see you. Here in XDefiant, visual clarity is paramount. Enemy players all have a red outline that makes them unmistakably clear in even very dense, very colorful maps. When players fire an unsuppressed weapon, they will appear on the minimap, making it easy to hunt them down or prepare for their rush. The sound design is excellent, with gun sounds prioritized highly in the overall mix to give you a lot of positional information. Let me put it this way, it was rare for me to be completely blindsided by a foe because the map layout, the enemy outlines, the red dot on the map, and the sound design made it very easy to maintain situational awareness. A huge win in a game where that sort of awareness is key.
Trespassers on Zone A. They're on Zone B. Light them up. Fire them up high.
So let's bring this home by asking and answering a few top-line questions. Firstly, am I saying that XDefiant is the bee's knees? No. I think this is a solid shooter that's doing a good job of nailing some fundamentals, but at the same time, I'm not seeing anything here that makes XDefiant like a standout must-play title. The finals had this environmental destruction feature that is totally transformative and totally fresh. I cannot wait to play more of that one on release because I think that's in that must-play category where it's doing something we haven't seen before. XDefiant isn't like that, but just because a game isn't breaking new ground doesn't mean it's totally devoid of value, and at the very least, XDefiant is strongly positioning itself as an alternative to Call of Duty when, if you think about it, there aren't too many games that dare to compete in that space. PlayStation have said in their submissions on the Activision Blizzard acquisition by Microsoft that if a studio had unlimited resources and unlimited time, they still could not develop a game that could compete with Call of Duty. Now obviously, that's a bit of an exaggeration probably, but it does speak to just how entrenched Call of Duty is and why so few publishers dare to go toe-to-toe with it. But at the same time, I think we also need to acknowledge how outdated Call of Duty's current release model is in the contemporary landscape. Yeah, you get your big shiny shooter every year, but you have to pay $70 and change for it, and that's before all the microtransactions, which are of course absolutely useless to you next year when the new game rolls around. So here comes a new challenger, attempting to address many of the gameplay complaints that Call of Duty players have. It's free to play, not requiring a yearly investment, and your purchases stay with you for the long term. That's a compelling value proposition on its own, and given how competent XDefiant already is, I expect it'll attract a fair amount of attention and goodwill come launch. Which brings us to the other big question: will Ubisoft be willing and able to maintain and support and grow this? I mean, history isn't the best guide here. We may look to the failure of Hyperscape or Roller Champions or even the Division 2, though Ubisoft are putting a lot more resources back into that one lately. But outside of that, there is stuff like For Honor, which is still supported and it's got a committed player base, and of course Rainbow Six Siege, which continues to be a very popular tactical shooter with regular updates and a full esports scene to boot. I think there's at least some reason to be optimistic on this front, for the simple reason that Ubisoft can't afford to screw this one up. Hyperscape died. Roller Champions is nuff. The Ghost Recon Battle Royale game got canned before it even got shipped. Skull and Bones is looking like a disaster in the making. Ubisoft need a big win, and this has the potential to be that if they play their cards right. If you look at the major publishers, they're all being propped up by one or more big successful live service title. Square Enix and Final Fantasy XIV, EA and its sports portfolio and Apex Legends, Activision and Call of Duty, Blizzard and World of Warcraft, Take-Two and GTA. Ubisoft doesn't have that, and if a publisher that large is going to survive, they're gonna need at least one game that can go big and help pay the bills. Do I think that XDefiant is that game? It's way too early to say, but I do think it has the potential to carve out a very respectable slice of the pie if Ubisoft can nurture it properly. It's a really great starting point. I think the dev team have done well here, and I think it's worth checking out if you're into these types of games. Whether or not you might want to stick with it in the long term, that's a question for Ubisoft. We'll have to wait to see how they answer it. As I mentioned at the top, this video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. But what is CuriosityStream? So, we're all subscribed to a bunch of streaming services at this point. They usually offer a mix of different types of programming. Some of it you might like, some of it you don't. What if there was one streaming service that specialized in one thing and one thing only? Expanding your mind. That's what CuriosityStream is. It's a streaming service for people who want to know more. Science, technology, history, the arts, nature, crime, you name it. CuriosityStream has exclusive award-winning films and shows on that subject that you can't watch anywhere else. It's the deepest collection of the best documentaries from around the world, deeper than any other streaming service out there, because this is what CuriosityStream specializes in. Curiosity is browsable by category, so if you want to learn more about physics, then you can search for any film or documentary on that subject. If you have a broader interest in space, you might want to check out their Deep Space collection, which is a curated list of Curiosity's best content teaching you more about the universe and its secrets. Curiosity is available to watch on almost all of your favorite streaming devices, on the web, on TV through Roku, Xbox, Smart TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and more, and all of your mobile devices, of course. It's available worldwide, and new shows are added every week. It's fantastic second monitor viewing, trust me on that, and it's a fraction of the price of other streaming services. If you check it out for yourself, you'll see what I mean. Go to curiositystream.com/skillup for unlimited access to the world's top documentaries and non-fiction series. And if you're watching this video, you can use promo code SKILLUP to save 25% off the subscription price. It's already one of the most affordable and best deals in streaming, and it's now even cheaper when you visit curiosity.com/skillup and use offer code SKILLUP at checkout. Thanks Curiosity for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.